My name is Mark Angel, and we're here at Center for Spiritual Awakening learning how to use sourdough. This particular starter came from Alaska. My mom picked it up on a McCall's magazine in a little powdered packet. She started it going, and we've kept it going ever since, and that was before I was born, sometime in the 1950s. And it's now adapted itself to the Monterey area, which is where we are now. And we are going to go ahead and take a look at what it looks like once we get the starter going. So once we get the starter going, it fizzles up and it gets all active and does all kinds of cool stuff. So take a look at this. This is what the sourdough starter looks like. This starter I prepared a couple of days ago, so it would be a little more sour. This one is fresh from yesterday, so it'll be a little less sour, a little sweeter. And this is a biscuit batter makeup that I let sit overnight. Basically what we've got here is a yeast that we feed with flour. So with water and flour and yeast, we end up with sourdough starter. Now, what I'd like to do is I'd like to get a bowl and I'd like to show you just how you make your batch of sourdough. 3 scoops is about 1 cup. So we're gonna do 1 cup of starter, because this is just a sample, because this will not be ready for us, because two scoops looks like about 1 cup. Oh, one other thing you need to know about sourdough starter is everything has to be exact measurements according to your experience.
And does it matter the temperature of the water?
Usually in a cold environment, like if it's wintertime, I'll put lukewarm water, but on a warm day, it doesn't matter. So I thank you for that question. That was really good. So I've got the water and the starter there. I mix it up so it dissolves in there and it becomes a milky consistency. The reason I do this before I put the flour in is just so there's better distribution of the yeast. And I'll tell you why I'm doing this for you, because a lot of times people say, well, I tried to get the sourdough started, but it just couldn't get the lumps out of the flour, or, you know, they have all these challenges. And I wanted to show you exactly what it looks like when you first mix it. So you're like, oh, that's okay then. Because I tell you, I've given people a lot of starters and they just get intimidated by them. So I thought, you know, I know some of you have some experience with that. So now we're gonna put the flour in. So this is the constant recipe. And it's all here in the instructions my mom prepared by hand with photocopy machines. And I've reproduced them, but that's my mom's thing. 2 cups of water, 2.5 cups of flour, and 1 cup of starter is what you start with. You can start with, see, this is an exact 1/2 cup measurement based on my experience. Okay, so that's key here. You want to get as much of the flour mixed against the water as you can, but it's going to be lumpy and it's going to be pasty when you get started. Those little yeasties get in there and get every grain of flour connected with the right amount of water. I don't know how they do it, but they work together as a colony and they make every grain of flour, those millions of grains of flour that we just put in there, they mix with molecules of water in just the right way. So I don't ask questions, I just let them do their job. And we end up with starting with this, which some people make pancakes and waffles out of this all the time. They put a little flour, a little water, an egg, you know, some milk, done deal, right? The difference is when you start with this, it changes the flavor, and we'll see that later. So this we're gonna set aside. It's not good until tomorrow. Maybe I'll make something tomorrow with it. So anyway, after it sits overnight, the very next step is to take out your original starter for next time. So we're gonna go get jars. But if you want to put, you know, it should be all right. I just watched them eat something. I should get a lot. This one. And the jars are free, no extra charge. They come with. So a key point here is that this water I used to make that starter is filtered water that has no chlorine left in it. I've either boiled it or I've filtered it with something that gets the chlorine out, or I've dipped it out of the stream. So those will all work well. And of course, we need unbleached white flour. Organic unbleached white flour, because chlorine kills bugs. And we want our bugs to stay healthy, happy, and alive. We do not want to kill them with chlorine or bleached flour or bleached or chlorinated water. So let me continue. This is the sponge. I don't know where they got that term. I don't know the etymology of it, but it's probably because it holds the little animals in it. They're not really animals, they're yeasties. At least my mom used to call them yeasties. Take the biscuit dough now. We're gonna take starter. Actually, I'm gonna use this one because it's a little stronger. And we're gonna put, the recipe calls for 1/2 cup, but you know what? We're gonna make a double recipe. So we're gonna do, and you know what? You can always put a little extra starter. Half a cup is kind of the minimum. So you put that in there like that. Okay, that's your starter. That's your sponge. Okay, the starter is safe. It's safe. The sponge is ready. So now we're gonna put in the sponge some yogurt.
Favorite bit.
I know.
I love the yogurt.
Some yogurt in the sponge. Okay, so I'm mixing in. Now you don't have to add water, you know, if you want it to be more dense, but I add water just because then I put more flour in it. It gives it a little more heft. But you can also just take yogurt and then you can add flour to this. But I'm gonna add a little water to it. Okay, we're gonna add about 1 cup of water. Okay, just add a little bit of water in there.
Because it's going to expand. Yeah.
There?
That's good. Yeah, that's fine. So this is sort of like the slurry you're starting with for biscuits. Then what we're going to do is we're going to put flour in it, mix it in fairly well, and then we'll put it in a bag for you to take home. Then tomorrow you add the rest of the ingredients, which includes the flour mixed with soda, salt, baking powder. Do you have baking powder?
Yeah.
And then we put exactly about this much flour.
This a much. This a much. This a much.
And mix that in until it's just about the right consistency. Now this is going to get softer, okay? So right now it's going to absorb that water and it's going to get all that ready, right? But then as the yeast go to work and they do their job, they break it up into molecular level. And so now we can even go a little bit more flour. The more flour you use now, the less you use later. Now, that's good and bad. The good thing about it is more of the flour has been digested by the yeast. The not as good part about it is if you put too much flour, then you know you can make it too dense or something or whatever. So when you get to about this point, you just stop mixing in the flour. And I mean, you can. I sort of go until it sort of, you know, just sort of go like that. Now, if you want to get a bag, we'll take that and put it in a bag, and you can take that home and take it the next step tomorrow. Here, I have taken sourdough sponge. I have added yogurt and water to it and mixed it up. And then I've added flour to it. And now it is in this particular consistency. See, it's kind of sticky. This is not like sponge, right?
Yeah.
No, this is like, and it's got these big porous holes in it. It's really cool. This one is ready to make biscuits. But see, isn't that nice?
That is so cool, yeah.
So this one, I'm going to add very carefully measured amounts of flour, and this is the next thing. Now we're going to the next. Okay, guys, this is next level. We're going next level stuff here.
Sit up straight.
We are going to add an order of magnitude of complication here, with and again, it's all in the book. So open up the book. These are I am a little more careful with my measuring on this one. So I've got a really interesting thing here. It's called a handy dandy sifter thingy.
Oh, yeah.
And it's going to help me. Now, I need to add flour, baking soda, baking powder, salt, and sugar to this. Now, all of those things have their own job. And it's a little more important now to think about measurements as opposed to heuristics. So a heuristic is a rule of thumb or a guesstimation. A measurement is a teaspoon of salt is a teaspoon of salt. So one caveat there is I wasn't very careful figuring out how much of this there was. So I basically have about this much stuff. So I'm going to use very precise measurements of salt, baking soda, baking powder, and sugar to work with about that much amount of stuff. So if you're looking for internal consistency, you will not find it. It says here, for the biscuit batter, second stage, 1 tablespoon of sugar. But since I've got like a triple recipe there, or a quadruple recipe, I'm gonna put 3 or 4 tablespoons of sugar in here. 1, 2, let's do 3. And it says 3/4 teaspoon of salt. So since I have, I don't know how much starter there, I'm gonna put 1. Let's see, 2 is a little more than twice 3/4. But, you know, since it's biscuits and I like a little extra salty flavor, I'm going to take another precise measurement out of approximately that and put it in for a little extra salt. But don't want it over salted. So my mom always said when you double the recipe, don't double the salt. But there's a partial reason for that too. It's because the salt also interferes with the rising of the baking soda interaction. So there are reasons for that. Now, baking powder, we're going to put 1, 2, 3 or so teaspoons of baking powder. Very level approximations of baking powder. And finally, it doesn't have to be, this could be the first thing, but in this case, it's finally. We're going to do a couple of teaspoons of baking soda. In this recipe, you use half the amount of soda as you use powder. So I'm going to use a little less. And now, I'm going to sort of mix it around a little bit, get it mixed in with some flour. Put a little more flour in here. You don't have to mix it all together first, but when I do that, I feel more confident that there's going to be a more even distribution of product through the batter.
So Mark, is it the yogurt that makes it thick initially?
So the recipe, you'll notice, doesn't say anything about yogurt. The recipe says mix starter, milk, and 1 cup of flour in large bowl. It's this is half cup of starter, 1 cup of milk, and 1 cup of flour. That's this result, but this is about a triple recipe. This had a couple of cups of starter and whatever flour it took to get it to right about there after I put yogurt and water mixed together. And the reason I like the yogurt is because I like the culture. Yogurt and sourdough both are different kinds of cultures. One is a bacterial and one is a yeast. And I thought maybe they'll go well together. So I did it, and it turned out the waffles were phenomenal. We'll be using yogurt for our waffles and pancakes too. And then I started using it for the biscuits, and it's like, well, why not? People use buttermilk for biscuits. Right. Why not use yogurt for biscuits? Why use milk and water? It's like, that's because that's what they had. I don't know. Be inventive. Don't ever be inventive with this. This is sacrosanct. Water that has no chlorine, flour that has no chlorine and has no husk, just simple unbleached white flour, and that goes with that for its whole life.
So about how much yogurt did you put in that triple recipe?
Just about exactly some of this amount.
Which is what?
I would say for the triple recipe, I did a cup of yogurt or a cup and a half, maybe 2 cups of yogurt. Okay. And I mixed water in with it till it was like a slurry, and then I mixed it up with the starter, and then with the sponge, and then I put this in here. And now I've lost track of this. I'm going to sprinkle this over and get it nice and distributed in here.
Does the sourdough culture have any probiotic properties?
Absolutely. But we're going to cook it. It's going to still have sort of a fluffy, less cooked interior that smells fermented. So you're still getting that probiotic sense. And I'm just going to keep mixing this in here. The biscuit dough has to be mixed pretty well. And so I just keep going with it.
And the gluten is vastly reduced in the whole process, right?
Okay.
Totally eliminated?
Yes, in the sourdough starter. But now we're going gluten heavy. Okay, because as I get this, so that right now it's breaking apart, less gluten. But once we get it to the point where it turns into stretchiness that we can then make, gringo empanadas out of, then we have some gluten going, and you make pizza crust, you make flatbread, you make biscuits, you make empanadas, you make whatever you can imagine you need to make out of this. Then we have some gluten going, and you make pizza crust, you make flatbread, you make biscuits, you make empanadas, you make whatever you can imagine you need to make out of this. Anybody want to mix?
I have a question.
You volunteering to mix?
She'll mix.
Okay, those biscuits we're gonna keep mixing, and you can add. We can add more. Here, let me add a little bit of this to it now. So take a look at this now. See how it's wet again? See how it's wet again?
Yeah.
We added a cup of flour and all that good stuff, but it's wet again. We need to keep adding flour till it becomes like a ball of dough. Yeah, so we're gonna sprinkle this in. We're gonna sprinkle some of this on. And as we add the flour, you know, it's okay now that, and I usually scoop it off the sides and then it rolls. You'll figure it out. I need to micromanage.
Have you rolled?
This yogurt we're gonna use for the pancakes mix.
Do
Yeah.
you ever use milk substitutes? How do they work with the batter?
You can use water. I
You
mean,
just use water?
yeah, I mean, you can use
Soy
anything you
milk
want.
or
Yeah, you
rice
can use
milk
anything
or-
you want. You know what? You can be inventive and do anything you want after you've preserved the starter.
So, and what you did there was preserving more of the starter, correct?
I preserved starter here. After the sponge was finished doing its thing, I took a portion of sponge out, which becomes my starter for the next sponge. Okay? That's the key to keeping your sourdough from being ruined.
You always just take a portion of
You
this.
always take a
and
portion of
put it
your
in a new jar.
exactly, or the same old jar but cleaned and washed, and et cetera. And you don't even have to wash your old jar. If you dump it in there, you leave your jar here, you let it sit overnight, you put it back in the same jar. It's no big deal. It's all just flour, water, and yeast. It's when you add anything else to it, salt,
Okay.
pepper, potato chips, yogurt, whatever you add to it, you don't want to add to the starter. I've never added potato chips to my sourdough, by the way. On a cool burner, and then let it come back and fill. Now, if your burner is already treated, and these burners really are already treated, but I'm just showing how we can do this. This is a little avocado oil, so that'll help keep the pancakes from sticking. And yeah, we use a fairly hot burner. We use a fairly hot burner for this. I mean, you're using a higher heat. It's the same in the oven. You're using like 375 or 400. Okay, so when you've done your 1 cup of starter, 2.5 cups of water, 2 cups of water and 2.5 cups of flour, you end up with like 4, let's call it 4 cups of stuff. So if I'm gonna make a single batch, I'm gonna have 4 cups of stuff. Oh, and then you take 1 cup out. So you really have 3 cups of stuff when you make an average 1 recipe of starter. The reason that's kind of important is because how I measure everything else that goes into here is based on a single recipe. 1 cup of starter, 2.5 cups of flour, 2 cups of water, and then 1 cup of starter removed. So whatever 2 cups of water and 2.5 cups of flour equals, it's about 3 cups. And that's what, so I only need that when I'm dipping it out like this. Then I create a recipe with 1 egg, 2 tablespoons cooking oil, and 1/4 cup instant dry milk. But in this case, I use yogurt. So I'm going to take
But
1
You
egg.
can also use just milk.
You can
Or
use,
like any water.
you can
or
use
whatever
water.
you're saying.
Yeah, so put an egg in.
What's the point of the dried milk? Is it just
That you will
easier?
have to, I think it gets it's less moisture, so it gives it a different consistency. Yeah, and I mean, sometimes use half and half. We'll try some different things here. This one we're gonna use yogurt with, so I need a 1 cup, well, I don't need a 1 cup measure, I'll just do a 1 cup estimate. Break that up. Oh, I need the oil. So the difference between sourdough waffles and sourdough pancakes is simply 2 tablespoons of oil. So in a pancake mix, you do 2 tablespoons of oil per batch, or per 1 cup of starter. And then in a waffles, you use 4. So that's the only thing that's different. So this one we're gonna make, and you can use olive oil, sesame oil, coconut oil, avocado oil, whatever you want. Because I'm making pancakes this time. We're gonna do 2 cups of this. I'm gonna use a little sesame oil in this one. Toasted sesame oil. Later, put a little, use exactly 1 cup of yogurt here.
Exactly.
Based on my best guesstimation. And then we're gonna get that all mixed up. Now this, nothing's happening yet. When I put the egg and the yogurt and all that stuff in, nothing's gonna really happen to it as far as in activity goes. But when I put in the mixture of baking soda, salt, and sugar, that's when everything starts happening. So I'm first gonna mix all this other stuff in. Because there's yogurt, it sort of clumps a little bit, so I'm sort of working it a bit. Squishing out the...
You
Little clone. This so far just has yogurt, oil, and egg. Then I am going to get another jar.
It's like a reality TV show.
Well, yeah. This is reality. Here we are. This is real, dudes. It doesn't get any realer than this.
My feet are hurting.
Let's see.
Go like this as you're standing. Just point your
Yeah,
toes.
Yeah.
Go up on your toes.
All right. So I always refer to my thing here: 1 teaspoon salt, 1 teaspoon baking soda, 2 tablespoons of sugar. So here's my baking soda. 1 teaspoon. Here's my sugar. 2 tablespoons.
And that's his biscuit one.
That's my biscuit one. How's that coming along?
Getting close. Getting
And
very,
I need
very
baking soda, sugar, and salt. And where's my salt? Here's my salt.
slow. Oh, come on, Dan.
I want you to do my hands. See, I saw it. Well,
Okay.
I don't want to interrupt the process.
Okay. Now I've got most of it. This is my power mix here. This is my power mix. And let me see. We've got a pancake griddle that's almost ready. Let me check and see if it's ready. The little light has not gone off yet, but when this little light goes off, I will be a believer, and it will be ready to take on a whole new meaning. So we're gonna get pancakes first, and you know what I'd like? Do I have a volunteer to mix up a waffle batter? Yeah, it'll be the same thing as I just did with pancakes in another bowl, and then we'll get the waffle irons running. So anybody want to step up for that? Okay, somebody. I think let's go grab a glass or a.
Where am I doing that? Over there?
Right here. Right here's fine. Let me just get you a bowl of some sort. Here's a bowl. Who's gonna do it? All right. So put 3 scoops of starter in there.
Okay.
Um,
Do I need to mix it before?
no, not really.
Here he comes.
Is it starting to get there?
Yeah, we're close.
All right. You put 3 scoops, and then you're gonna put 1 egg. But I'll let you count your scoops first. I don't want to.
Okay, that's not too much. It's pretty
It
full
looks like
scoops.
3 scoops.
It does. It runs.
It's your estimation of 3 scoops, which is what
Okay.
matters.
What's my estimation of your estimation?
1 egg.
One
An egg? Just
Crack 1 egg in there. Yep, just crack it in there. And you can put that over here.
So
Put,
those are bigger batches of starter that you're doing now.
A little bit of a cup of yogurt. These are no. This is sponge that we're now converting to
Those are bigger
batter.
batches of sponge that you
Yes, that we're now converting to batter.
batter. Okay.
So you've got your starter.
Those look like about a cup.
Oh, it's about half a cup.
That's half a cup?
You said you put 3 scoops of starter in there. You meant
Sponge. I meant sponge. 3 scoops
Okay,
of sponge.
sponge.
So you start with starter, then you have sponge, which is a big thing of starter. That's getting about right. Just stir it up into a ball and let it sit. And we'll cover it with a towel. Who wants to make pancakes? Who wants to stand over there and staff the pancake machine?
Mark, do you think we need a little more?
Let me see.
You got a volunteer here.
No, I think this is just right.
Daniel.
Here, Mark, show me how to do the first one.
Okay, so let me just get that going. So Daniel, I've put in the active ingredient. So now that we put in the active ingredient and the light is off, we will start sort of just making pancakes. And I usually make about 4 each. So you just go, you've probably done this before. You just sort of make them like that. I'll let you make the next pile. Okay, those are cooking. Now, those keep cooking. You can put some over there, and when they get all crusty on top and bubbly, you flip them. And
And then do I put more oil afterwards?
Nope, you probably don't have to.
That's it. Okay.
How's the waffle iron doing? Oh yeah, sure.
Anything sugar, salt?
Yes, but not yet. Mix all that in with a spoon from the kitchen. Oh, you can use this spoon. I'm not using it. So let's see. This just has a little bit of extra flour and stuff on it. I don't think that matters. is the starter sample. Sample starter is just flour and water. Mix that in. That's 4 cups of oil, right? I mean, 4 tablespoons of oil. Yeah. So now you need to mix up your powder. The difference between the waffles is that they have 4 tablespoons of oil instead of 2 per batch. So if you're doing a double batch, that will be 8. Waffles just are a little oilier, that's all. 1 of these. 1 of these.
How does this look, Chief?
That looks good. Just keep mixing. Get it all nice and all very thoroughly mixed in with the egg and the salt, with the egg and the oil and the yogurt. All thoroughly mixed in. Now we just have the sugar. 1, 2. Now what I forgot to do last time with the pancakes is I forgot to run this through our handy dandy sprinkler thing. So you take this, you pour it in there over the top because it's going to filter through. Pour it in and then squish it out.
whole
And then,
thing.
yeah, well, let's make sure the waffle irons are ready. I'm going to use canola oil on the waffle iron because it distributes more easily. See, those you can let go a little longer.
Forgot about those.
I know.
Yeah, I was
had
wondering.
one of those. I just forgot about
Sister.
it. I started.
Oh, my pot's already on there. Yeah, no, just put it in the pot.
I'm cooking waffles.
So does anyone-
My name is
does anyone
Trees,
wanna
and I'm
take a
cooking
biscuit and
waffles.
start with them?
This is a sourdough
You wanna take a
waffle.
biscuit and start with you? You can cook it
Isn't
all.
it beautiful?
Yeah.
Don't you want one right now? Unless you already ate one like everybody else.
I'm gonna get, if you bring a bowl,
Waffle. Waffle queen.
Syrup added to
then
it.
the syrup can be added to it. Put a little syrup. I usually have like a combination of syrup, honey, and butter.
Hi, I'm Marty. I'm enjoying stirring together this delicious mixture of maple syrup, honey, and butter. It's the perfect mix to pour on top of a waffle. I even tried it on my pancake, also good on that. And it is bubbling away, so it's just about ready. If somebody would come over with a plate, I could serve it up.
We're trying it. All right, good job.
You leave one. Can I get a square?
Batter up. Batter up. Hey, batter.
So, in full sentences, state your name and what you are currently doing.
Hello, I'm Daniel. I'm here at CSA Sunday Funday. We are making sourdough everything. And what I'm doing here at this station is making some flatbread. So all of the ingredients have already been pre-mixed, and you can catch that on the previous video. But this is basically getting a tennis ball size of the mix for the flatbread, and you're gonna put it towards, almost a little bit towards the back of this tortilla press. I've oiled the tortilla press prior just so that it can prevent it from not sticking. Once you get it towards, a little bit towards the back, it's gonna splat out when you squeeze it down. Just gently place it down, let it do its thing, and then use a lever to help flatten it out a little bit more. And just pressing on it gently, and you can see it's going to start to kind of spew out here on the sides. There it goes. Now I'm just pressing it down gently because it's going to bounce back once I do open it up. But you can see all around the perimeter of this press that it is spewing out. Again, this is flatbread. I'm now going to lift it. This is the way they make the tortillas, the old-fashioned way. Oops, maybe I went a little too much. But we're still gonna pull it off. This means that I didn't put enough oil in it. Actually, what we're gonna do is try it again. This is probably not a good cut.
So, what's your name?
I'm Nancy.
All right, and what was your favorite thing that we did today, or your favorite sourdough thing?
Well, I like crispy, and I love the crispy waffles. But when Mark added the jalapeno to the waffles, that was, I've never had that before. Jalapeno cheese, that was my favorite by far. Loved it, and I like mine. The more sour, the better for me. Thank you, Mark.
Go.
My name is David, and this has been really wonderful today. Favorite part, hard to say, but probably the waffles. Just drenched in maple syrup and butter.
Cover this with what
A
exactly?
towel. Just grab that towel and put it over there in the corner and let it sit. Okay, what did I just do?